Ladies and gentlemen, our referee has called a stop to this contest, declaring the winner by knockout and new MMA show!
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another exciting round of and new MMA show. I'm your host, Michael Hansen, and I do all kinds of astonishing things with microphones. I had to think a bit because I'm a ring announcer and cage announcer and all that stuff. And I'm joined this week, as I always am, by my two buddies, my two friends, both of whom I would say bring MMA punditry to new heights. Cheers to that. Introducing to you first, in New York, he is Mark Priaulx. What's up, buddy?
What's up, boys? Did anything much happen this week in MMA? Do we really have much to go over here?
Not much. Not much.
Fucking soul has been shattered. I just want to make that clear.
I can't wait to get into it all. But yeah, ready to go. Nothing to report, I don't think. Let's throw it over to the Nigerian nightmare over there.
Yes, in Florida. He is the Nigerian nightmare, Omar Artola. What's up, bud?
That is not accurate.
How high is it right now?
I just realized what I said.
It's not it.
Mike,
I said it too.
Either. We both said
Yep.
I just echoed you. Oh, my God.
Nope.
He
It's
is
not
the
it.
Nicaraguan nightmare.
man.
That's better. That's better.
Very good start to the
Wow,
episode.
sorry.
Yeah. That's a good one
funny.
there. Yeah. Everything's good, man. Everything's good. Copacetic. Work is great. I have a job, so this is things are coming full circle here.
The listeners thought that Kamaru Usman was our special guest for a second there.
One
Disappointed
day,
to
right?
find out it was me.
It's
was me
just
all along.
The same old Omar. Speaking of Nicaragua and Florida, what's the temperature right now in Florida in mid-September?
Like
Just
at this
curious.
particular second, it gets nicer in the evenings now. It's not nearly as humid in the evenings as it would be at like the peak of July and August. But it's still hot as shit during the day. It still gets up to like 97, 98.
Oh my God. I mean, it's getting pretty cool here in Michigan. It's like down in the 50s. We're going to have some nights in the 40s already.
I'll tell you,
And,
man, it's great when
brisk.
you work out because I sweat like I am leaking by the time I'm done working out and stuff like that. And it's great for staying in shape and cutting them pounds and all that good stuff.
For sure. I bet. Yeah.
I always
good
think
in
that. I'm always like, if I lived like near a beach in that kind of weather, I'd be in such good shape because I'd like want to be outside doing things. Then I'd
It's
probably
true.
live there, nothing would change, but that's how I view it in my head.
No, it's totally true. It's totally
go to
true.
the
You
wine
get
every night.
so much more motivated. And the reality is you can go year round. Like
Right.
being up north, I didn't want to go to the gym in fucking 2-degree weather with the snow in my face, and I'm like 100 degrees inside of my coat, sweating balls from having just left the gym, and it's freezing dick outside. I still remember it now to this day, and I hated it. I like this situation way more.
You'd rather be too hot than too cold?
By far. I hate
Really?
clothes as it is.
I feel like
Dude,
the heat
if I
is
could
just
walk
as,
around
like-
naked, I would. I'd be dick out 24/7, let me tell you.
Dude, I feel like the excessive heat is just as like oppressive as like the cold.
It can be. However, I find the remedies for heat much more enjoyable than the remedies for cold. I
Like
can go
AC?
into a pool and be perfectly fine. I can go to the beach and enjoy myself. I can have my AC in my house and be perfectly comfortable until it breaks, which it did, but we got it fixed quickly. And that was a real wake up call, I'll tell you what, because it's blowing hot fucking air in my house and I'm trying to figure out why the thermostat's going up when it says it's cooling. So,
Damn.
long story short, there are better remedies, but I'll tell you what, going to Disney for me and my wife in like 103-degree heat, those are the days that'll really fuck with you in Florida. I'll tell you that.
Dude, it's the opposite here in Michigan. It's like, dude, last winter, I got stuck in a blizzard that I did not see coming because it snows so often here that you just kind of
Yeah.
get used to it and you kind of don't even check the weather anymore because it just snows very often.
Yeah.
I was at work, and while I drove to work with the roads dry, while I was at work, a blizzard happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to drive home, and I would have called out knowing how bad it was going to get. I was like, I could have died. Like, I could have died driving home in that.
Dog, I know exactly what that's like because I lived in Buffalo for 7 years, and there were freak whiteouts like on a regular basis, like at least every year. And I was driving, and this is when I was in my early 20s, so I was broke as fuck. I was driving a Toyota Echo from like 2001 with, and if you don't know what a Toyota Echo is, it's a little, it's like a little car with a little dump truck of an ass on the side there.
It's like a tadpole.
It's like if the Yaris was like 90 years old at this point, right? And my little fucking 13-inch wheels that were bald tires at that point, just ice skating on my way home. I felt like I knew how to Tokyo drift by the time I was done living in Buffalo. I don't, but I felt that way.
I love how every intro of me is always like, yeah, hey, hi. And then we intro Omar and we're like, let's analyze life today.
Speaking of analyzing, we have quite a bit to analyze because some things, as Mark alluded to, some things have happened in MMA this week, these past 7 days, since the last time we dropped a show. We're going to talk about all of the fights from this past weekend's pay-per-view UFC 293, Adesanya versus Strickland. I'm chuckling because of the result of that main event. I still can't believe it. We're going to talk about it. We're going to find out who rose and fell in Mark's very own rankings system, the Priaulx Rankings, on the heels of this UFC pay-per-view. We're going to dive inside the MMA Sphere with Omar Artola, the man in Florida, with the AC blasting. We're going to find out what's new in the world of MMA. I do know a few humongous things have happened in the past, 24, 48 hours in the world of MMA, which we are going to talk about. And then we're going to look ahead to this coming weekend's UFC Fight Night, also called Noche UFC, in celebration of Mexican Independence Day, which is kind of like a mini pay-per-view because it will be headlined by Alexa Grasso defending her UFC Women's Flyweight title against Valentina the Bullet Shevchenko. Excuse me, not the Bullet. I believe it's just Bullet. In their rematch. A rare title fight headlining a fight night, which is kind of cool, kind of novel. And then we might end with a little bit of trivia. Before we get into any fight talk, guys, or any more meteorology talk on this show, let us first thank our audience. Guys, if you're watching this on YouTube right now, hey, thank you so, so much. We appreciate each and every one of you guys who are making this channel possible, making this show possible. Give us a thumbs up. Just do it. Just right now. Just click it. It costs you nothing, but it helps us out so, so much. If you've been watching a bunch of our videos at this point, if you haven't subscribed yet, hey, click the subscribe button so that you never miss an episode. If you want to take that a step further, click on the little bell button so that you get a little notification every time we drop a new clip or new episode. That's even better. Again, it helps us out so, so much. But our favorite form of audience engagement is down in the comments below. If you like any of our takes, let us know. If you disagree with any of our takes, let us know down in the comments. We want to hear your takes and your opinions about these fights, these previews, these recaps. We want to hear your takes as well. We, and by we I mean mostly Mark, engages with just about every single comment that we get on our videos. We love the community that we're building here on And New. We're going to come up with some kind of name for our listeners, I think, at some point. That might not be tonight. If you want audio only, we got you there. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. And, of course, find us on social. You can find us on all the relevant platforms, Instagram, Twitter, or X, or whatever it's called, at @andnew_MMA show in all the places. We made it the same, I think, intentionally on every social, right? Or the same thing. At @andnew_MMA show everywhere. That's it. I'm cutting myself off. Let's get into this. All right. This week, the name on the marquee has got to be Sean Tarzan Strickland, who this past weekend, in front of 18,000 people at the, how do you say it, Kudos Bank Arena in Sydney, Australia, is now the UFC undisputed middleweight champion because he defeated Israel Adesanya by a unanimous decision in the main event of this UFC pay-per-view. The scores read 49-46 on all three judges' scorecards. Mark, let me start with you. Man, oh man, I did not think that we would be here talking about Sean Strickland defeating Israel Adesanya. What was your take on the fight, on Strickland's performance, on Adesanya's performance, the whole thing? The floor is yours.
Sean Strickland is the middleweight champion of the world, and defense wins championships. We know it applies in other sports. We didn't know it applied in MMA, but we do now. Sean Strickland's defense won him that fight. Izzy could not find him all night long. And I've heard this narrative of, like, Izzy looked slow and Izzy looked off, and these fighters who are like, if I fought that version of Izzy, it wouldn't have lasted 10 minutes and blah, 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 blah. I completely disagree. Izzy just got shut down. He was still himself in there. Of course, yes, Sean clips him in round one, which was an enormous moment, and gets to put that round in his pocket. But Izzy was unfazed. He came out, he won round two, and he looked like his usual self. He was making his reads. He was feinting. He was freezing Sean. He was outlanding him. And then Eric Nixick, even after round two, went up to Sean, and he said he was letting himself get snake charmed. That's typical Izzy. That's what he does to guys. And it even continued into round three until Sean picked it up very late in that round to end up making that a close round. But the same Izzy was in there. It's just that Sean caught him in round one. And then after round three is when Sean got the speech from Nixick about not coming all this way to lose a fucking point fest and all this. And that's when he turned it up, and that's when he brought the activity. Prior to that, it was just pressure. Of course, he had the constant pressure from opening bell through all 25 minutes of the fight. But the activity wasn't there. That combo of activity and pressure is what won him the fight. And that was from the start of round four onward. And that's what took the final 10 minutes. And now it turned out that he did get round three on the cards as well. But my point is that the usual Izzy was in there. He was trying. He just got shut down because he could not find Sean with anything. Izzy is at his best when he can manage the range and decide when exchanges are going to take place. And Sean completely took that away from him. First off, he walked him down all fight and made Izzy constantly be walking backwards and have to reset. He parried the jab and slipped the jab all fight, so Izzy couldn't use it as a rangefinder and as a combination starter. He continually was lifting his lead leg upward and inward to lessen the impact of Izzy's calf kicks so that he could just put that leg right back down and keep walking forward. If you rewatch, you'll know what I mean. I don't know. It's kind of hard for me to describe what I mean, but he was like flipping it in at the knee, upward and inward to lessen the impact. He caught Izzy's body kicks multiple times. He was regularly just kind of backsliding his lead leg out of the way of kicks. I mean, he fought a perfect, beautiful defensive fight. Everything that Izzy wanted to do to establish range or to keep Sean from walking him down or to start his setups, it wasn't landing. None of it was landing. He even went back after round four, and he was like, I can't find my jab. He's slipping everything. And it's true. And he even took one of Izzy's favorite defensive tactics away and used it himself, which is to simply lean back, because he was always in space and was able to just kind of lean out of range. And you can't lean back when you're against the fence, and we know Izzy loves to do that. And that's why he was catching Izzy with his jab, because he has a long jab, and Izzy could not be leaning back out of the way. But all of that are things that we already knew Sean Strickland could do. Like, I know I picked Izzy simply because I figured, across 25 minutes he could set something up and land something big and he'd take it. But I stressed last week why I thought Sean was such an interesting opponent for him, if you go back and listen. And it's because this is the same thing I said last week. What he had to do to beat Izzy was simply what he always does. Just bring constant pressure, be hard to hit, and it might go his way. He didn't have to reinvent the wheel to pull this off. And that's why, even though I picked Izzy, I'm really not all that surprised. Like, I even had someone say to me right before the fight started that if Sean won, it would be the biggest upset ever. And I laughed at him. Like, I was like, it wouldn't even be in the conversation. Like, I actually thought it was an awful take. And now, of course, it happens, and I'm hearing all these people calling it the biggest upset ever. So I guess it's me that's in the minority. But, like, I really thought going in that the style matchup made it so that Sean was live in this fight. Like, I truly didn't feel so surprised when it was over. And boy, was he ever live, man. He went 25 minutes with Izzy. It was not a fluke knockout. No question of the scoring. He won as clearly as you can win a fight. And he earned it so clearly that the Australian crowd was even cheering for him by the end because they knew how much he had earned that thing.
Omar, I want to get your opinion of where you think this ranks on all-time upsets.
I think the reason for me why it does seem like kind of an upset is because on paper, and I was listening to an interview that Chris Curtis did with Ariel Helwani, and I felt so validated in that moment because Chris Curtis is very close with Sean Strickland, trains with him and all that shit. And he was like, Sean Strickland does everything wrong. Everything Sean Strickland does and the way he performs is not the way you would learn how to do it. The way he blocks drives me fucking crazy. I'm gonna be honest. His like kung fu blocks that are like out here, you can't block shit like that. It's not supposed to work, but he makes it work, right? The Philly shell I have kind of less of a problem with, but there are things with how he blocks certain things, how he moves, his footwork in general, that's just like, this shit is just not supposed to work, but like God bless him because it does. And I think that's kind of the reason why, right? Like when you think of Adesanya, you think of, this elegant martial artist, this person who can, strike with the best of them. And I guess there's an expectation of what Adesanya can do. And I don't think Sean Strickland holds that same expectation when he fights, right? We expect him to be dirty. We expect him to be, the grinding fighter. But we don't necessarily expect him to outstrike the greatest striker that's currently fighting in the UFC. Like that's a rough one. You know what I mean? I don't know if that was really on anybody's bingo card. Sean Strickland catching Adesanya and winning a fight is completely different than I think what we saw over the course of 5 rounds. I thought that was a real eye opener, I think, for everybody who kind of has doubted Sean Strickland along the way.
I actually bet on Sean Strickland by decision. That's how shocked I am. Like, I picked Izzy on the show, but the odds for Izzy were so bad.
They're wild. They were wild.
That I was like, I kind of want to touch this fight, and I was like, Sean could win it, and if he wins it, it'll be a decision, and that's what I went with. So, like,
wow,
even that worked.
The real issue I had with that fight, and I know I don't want to say that Israel Adesanya looked off, because I don't think he looked off. I do think that he got shut down by Strickland. I think the punch in the first round, although he looked good in the second, I think it did mess with the way that he had an outlook for how that fight was going and how he wanted that fight to go. The real problem I had was that he didn't make reads. The way he normally make reads is that he does things, he feints obviously, and he adjusts. But he was feinting so much and he wasn't actually throwing things that were going to work. Everything that he was throwing just wasn't working, but he wasn't changing it. He was throwing the same shit over and over again. And it got to a point with in certain spots where it felt like insanity. Like, change up the timing, change up the angle, change up he wasn't really going to the body as much as he should have for all the blocking that was happening on in the head. There should have been a lot more combos to the body, a lot more hands to the body. It's just, I just wish he would have made those reads the way I think he could have in general with the way that he strikes. I think that was kind of why there's an expectation there and why I think there was so much disappointment. And probably why people thought that he didn't look right? Like, maybe because we expect him to make those kind of reads, those adjustments. And maybe it was Sean Strickland that just shut him down completely in that sense. Maybe after round 1, Israel just was kind of just focusing and going on autopilot, not really trying to, like, we've seen Izzy fight to not knock a guy out, right? Just fight to sort of not lose. And it's very possible that because he was aggressive in round 1, and it's very possible that after round 1, after he got knocked down, he was like, all right, well, I got 4 rounds to not fuck this up, and just kind of went with that mentality, which didn't serve him well and generally never serves anybody well.
I feel like I had a little bit of an opposite reaction during round one. I felt like coming off of the energy of Adesanya's last performance, his last two fights, both times fighting Alex Pereira, a guy who is much bigger than him in the octagon, and a guy who possesses real dangerous weapons in his hands. Compared to those fights, especially the second fight, where Adesanya I felt seemed to me much more dialed in when he was in the cage with Pereira. I felt like in the first round of this fight with Strickland, I swear, live watching it, round one, I was like, Adesanya looks like, not that he's checked out quite that much. I don't want to go that far, but I felt like it's that kind of thing where like he thinks he knew that he was better than Strickland, and I felt like his foot was not on the gas with Strickland, and I feel like I sensed that in round one, and I was like, he might pay for that, and he did, dude. By the end of round one, he got dropped because Strickland is smaller than him. Strickland's only like what 6'1", so Adesanya is taller than him. He looks down on him. And Adesanya's like, I'm a world-class kickboxer. This guy's not. And, dude, he paid for it.
The hook that Adesanya threw was reckless as fuck, though. Like, let's be clear. That hook was like, I mean, he threw that shit from out here. I mean, his whole everything was exposed. And he got cracked because Sean Strickland came right down the middle. And a straight line is going to beat a circle every time. And Adesanya had, like, if he was tighter in that moment, it wouldn't have been a problem. But I think he's gotten away with so many firefights, especially with Robert Whittaker, because that's the same type of hook that he's thrown with Robert Whittaker.
Yep.
And it fucking murdered Robert Whittaker. But like that hook, the way he was throwing it, he was super, super open and super outside. And he was in a very closed situation there against the cage. So there wasn't a lot of room for him to move, to duck and dodge and do whatever he generally does, maybe to get out of the way. So it was just... Maybe it was the pressure, man. I mean, the pressure from Sean Strickland, don't get me wrong, is a motherfucker. I mean, that I think is one of his greatest assets in general, is the pressure. And I think it does mess up people like Israel Adesanya. I could actually equate it to a chess match, right? We love talking about chess, and we love talking about like how chess and fighting are very similar. When you have a grandmaster, right, these guys that are ranked number 1, number 2 in the world, whatever, some of these chess matches that they play can go on for quite some time, right? They're not generally super fast. If you take some of those guys and you take them down to like the Lower East Side in Manhattan and you put them up against Grandpa with a clock and 2 minutes, shit changes, dog. They're not the same grandmaster anymore. That is, it's completely, speed chess is a completely different game. And I say that because there's more pressure, right? You don't have the time to sit there, think about your move and kind of calculate and judge the board the way you would when the time is literally going to eat you alive if you do that. So Sean Strickland, I think, has that effect where he creates that time. He has that clock going. And Israel Adesanya was backing up and moving laterally and backing up. And he just got to a point where he was riding the fence for the entire fight. And it really sucked to watch, man. And I knew Izzy was in trouble once we had gotten to a point where he started shelling up, like just ready to take shots. I didn't like that at all, and I knew we were in for a rough night.
Dude, I was so disappointed.
I was sorry, Mike, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was getting ready to make almost the same exact comparison, so it's funny that you just did that. But I was gonna say, for anyone that plays basketball, you have those nights sometimes where nothing is going in, and you're like, what the fuck? Why can't I make a shot right now? Like, I'm doing the same shit I always do. Nothing is going in, and it gets in your head where you just start to feel like you can't make a shot. And I feel like that was happening to Izzy. I get what Mike's saying. I do think it's very possible that he kind of went in there with a calmness where someone who is as elite technique-wise as him, he looked at Strickland's game and he was like, my technique is going to shine here. All I got to do is be calm, and I got 25 minutes, and I'm going to find a way to pick this dude apart as the fight goes on. I could completely see that being his mindset. But then I think that what Omar just said and what I just said is what happened as that fight went on, in that he had no chances to reset. He had to constantly back up. And as I was saying before, all of his initial strikes to set things up and to start combos and to make Sean move certain ways, they weren't doing what they're supposed to do. Sean was finding ways to nullify all of them. And I do think there was plenty of times in there where Izzy was like, what the fuck? Like my things that work are not working. And he was kind of feeling like, what's going on? Like, I'm supposed to be better than this dude.
Yeah.
And it was just too late. And I even think maybe that round 2, I think he was maybe still confident after round 1, and then he won round 2, and he was like, all right, I'm going to keep fighting like this, and I'm going to be fine. And then it's round 3, and he's like, did I drop that round? Did I get it? And then round 4 is the round that he like clearly lost, and you could see that's the round where he came back to the corner, and he was like, I can't find this guy. And that's when the frustration was really hitting him. And then same thing happened in round 5, and it's just he was out of time.
And it makes me wonder, like, was there ever even a consideration in changing up the approach, right? After how many rounds are you like, maybe striking a distance with this guy the way I'm doing it's not going to work. Maybe let's try working in the clinch. Maybe let's try seeing if we can, put the pressure on. I don't want to assume that that's just something that you can all of a sudden do, obviously, right? But it just seemed to me that with all the trouble he was having throughout 20 minutes, especially knowing in the 5th round, he had to have known in the 5th round that he was going to lose that fight if he kept going. Like, at what point do you just change it up, do something different? Like, I keep thinking about Cejudo losing that first round. What was it, against Marlon? And then, was it against Marlon? Who he fought? I can't remember who the fuck it was now. But he fought somebody, and he dropped the first round, and he looked like he was getting beat on. And he came back in the 2nd round and beat the holy shit out of whoever it was. And he made these adjustments. He looked completely different than how he looked in the 1st round, approached the fight completely differently, and completely won the fight as a result of that change and
Marlon Rice?
That adjustment. Yeah. Nice. Oh, you meant Cheeto. My bad.
Yes.
Yeah, my bad. Rice. So, yeah, so that's kind of my point, is there wasn't that adjustment that I would expect from somebody at Izzy's level. And I really think that's where all this upset stuff is coming from. It's just, I think we had expectations, and it's not necessarily that Sean Strickland couldn't win, but Jesus Christ, you couldn't tell me the way that he won wasn't crazy as fuck.
Oh, it was special, and I will never forget that fight. I
can't watch that fight again.
I guess my point was more just, I think too many people looked past the trickiness of the style matchup.
Yeah.
Yeah. But on the other hand, I feel like calling it the biggest upset ever, I'm like, let's calm down. To me, it's not.
I mean, I still the big one in my head is GSP and Sarah.
Agree. That's number 1.
Yeah, I mean that shit's crazy. That's wild.
Like, yes,
like
given where the great Matt Serra kind of was in the welterweight picture at the time, compared to what GSP was.
He had won tough to get back in the UFC. He wasn't even. He had been out of the UFC.
And GSP was GSP. Like, he was a nasty dude at the time.
So tell me, remind me, if you guys know, how did Matt Serra wind up in a title shot?
By winning tough.
That was the prize.
Tough. Yeah. It was guys that had been in the UFC and were now out getting a shot to win tough and return to fight GSP.
Did they have, was it Tough Redemption or some shit? Did
Something
they have
like
a name for it?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and
so no one was like creating a buzz for a challenger for GSP.
And no one gave GSP a chance, or no one gave Matt Serra a shot. Everybody said Matt Serra was too small, that he was just a jiu-jitsu guy. There was no way that he was going to beat GSP. And he overhand rights the fuck out of GSP and just destroys his whole life. I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I think Pena over Nunez was way bigger than this.
Oh,
I
that was huge.
Of others.
Sure.
Also, to me, the context of the upset, because Adesanya just recently lost. He just recently got TKO'd.
Agreed.
And then he got the belt back, and now he has lost again. So that recent loss to Pereira kind of took the shine a little bit off. Like, to put it in comparison to me, Holly Holm beating Ronda Rousey. Holly was the first person to take Ronda off the throne. And to me, that right there, I mean, honestly, I didn't even think about Sarah versus GSP, but Holly defeating Ronda in the way that she did, to me, was a bigger upset, because Ronda, up until that fight, was Ronda. She was like this juggernaut who is just invincible in the women's bantamweight division, and the way that Holly beat her, finally sort of exposing the weaknesses in Ronda's game in the way that she did. That, that infamous moment where she ducked under Ronda's like left hook, and Ronda like stumbled to her knee, and the crowd was like, "Oh my God!" I think that was like moments before, maybe the finishing sequence or maybe a round before.
Oh,
anyway,
watching Ronda get head kicked was just tragic.
That was crazy,
it's tragic.
Dude. But again, I think that was a bigger moment than this because Adesanya just lost this past year to Alex Pereira.
Yeah, but him losing to Alex Pereira wasn't a shock because he's done it before. That's happened before. So no one thought that was going to be a big deal, right? Like the Nunes Pena thing. For me, I kind of feel that way about Pena the way that Mark feels about Strickland. Like I kind of had an idea that Pena could definitely win that fight.
That's true. You felt similarly in that one as I do now.
Yeah, I thought Amanda Nunes was Amanda Nunes. I thought she'd get it done, but like Pena, the way that people were writing off Pena, I thought was an absolute mistake.
I do remember you saying that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look, on the one hand, though, I will say this. On the one hand, losing to Sean Strickland in this way, in a unanimous decision, to me, as much as I love Adesanya, and I love Adesanya, man, he's such a star, it takes a lot of shine off of his legacy to me at this point. Like the man, I want to say he should still be considered in his prime, and to lose in this way to a guy like a Sean Strickland, respect to Sean Strickland. That being said, on the other hand, calling it like the biggest upset ever, I'm like, let's slow our roll here. Let's slow our roll.
Maybe I can finally stop hearing people say that he is the middleweight GOAT because he's fucking not.
I mean, like piggybacking off the... Right. Just exactly. Like to go a little bit further with the point that I just made, taking a lot of shine off of his legacy to me. This never would have happened with Anderson. Like Anderson in his prime just was so much better than everybody.
Yeah, but that's also a result of the times as well. Nobody was training Muay Thai. Like, look at the way he ragdolled Rich Franklin. Rich Franklin was a motherfucker in his era. And he came in there and made Rich Franklin like he had never even heard the words Muay Thai before. Like, it was just a different time. Israel Adesanya, for him to be such a great striker in an era where everybody is learning striking at a better level than what they were back then, I think says a lot more about, his level and where he's at. I don't think we should write him off. I mean, Anderson Silva, you're never going to hear me say a bad word about Anderson Silva. I love Anderson Silva. He's one of the reasons I started following the sport as hard as I did.
I don't even think Izzy is some advanced version like you're saying. I think if you put Prime Anderson in a cage with Prime Izzy, I would pick Anderson.
I would say that now, to be honest, because there's the Izzy that
old Anderson had a competitive fight with Izzy.
No, he did, but I also think that was something that was allowed, right? Izzy also didn't really put the pace on him, didn't really get crazy with it, and I feel like Izzy's that was one of his more like boring fights, was the fight against Israel Adesanya, or was against Anderson Silva.
I mean, he's had a
few. But Izzy's he has, and I think that's really the issue. Is like
so did Anderson. Let's not pretend he didn't.
Well, the Damian Maia fight will live in infamy forever.
Those were boring for a different reason with Anderson. Those were boring for a different reason.
Was it Cote? Was the other one?
No,
I feel like Cote was competitive. Cote made it competitive.
Yeah. I don't think Cote would have even allowed a boring
Thiago Leites?
Yes.
That was a boring one.
Yes.
It was a terrible fight.
Yes. Maia and Leites. Those are the two I'm thinking of.
Well,
his Brazilian countryman.
He took it easy.
There you go. People used to say that he took it easy on Brazilians.
Yeah, I like the way that Izzy fights. I still think he's a great striker, but there is something that does seem off about the way he's been approaching these fights. And it could be, I mean, there's how many fights has he had? He's had 3 fights in what? Months? Not even a year at this point? I mean, he's one of the more active champions that there are. We're still fucking waiting for Stipe to come back. I know he's not champion, but what the hell's happening there? Jamal Hill was like not even scheduled for a fight, and he's already gone from champion to not. Same with Yuri Prohaska. Like, Israel Adesanya has been forever. At work.
No, it's true. It's true. Yeah. I'm not knocking it. I love Izzy. I've said it before on the show. I love him. I'm not trying to knock him. He's just number 2, and I always thought that, so I hope
Yep.
other people see that too.
I mean, but again, Omar, your point about different eras, it is slightly different eras, and the point is well taken. Let's, in the interest of time, start to move this thing along here. Let's talk about what can be next for these two gentlemen. A big talking point in the world of MMA since this fight ended this past Saturday night, rematch or nay? Dana, I believe in the post-fight pressers and some interviews, was saying, yeah, rematch makes a lot of sense. I've heard a lot of talking heads and also people online saying, at this point, Adesanya has now lost 2 of his last 3 title fights. Doesn't deserve an immediate rematch at this point. Omar, what do you say?
So, from a meritocracy standpoint, he should not be getting another title shot. He got beat fair and square from essentially 4 rounds. The 3rd round, I'm not even going to die on that hill at this point. But he lost that fight, man. He didn't get caught. This wasn't like, the fight with Alex Pereira. He was winning that fight up until he wasn't. And so everybody was like, well, I wonder what would happen if it happened again. Like, the Sean Strickland one is not the same deal. I do think that Izzy should be fighting at least one more to get back in the mix. I think Dricus probably makes the most sense if Dricus is not going to get the next title shot. But the reason why I think they're talking about Adesanya getting the next title shot is because it's a big possibility that there's nobody who's going to sell the way that Adesanya is going to sell. I mean, who are you going to put Sean Strickland up? Sean Strickland is not a proven, money grab at this point, right? I would assume that this was probably not on the UFC's bingo card either, as far as having to figure out how to market this dude, who they probably had to cut so much footage.
Supposedly, he has had shocking, click reach since this event.
Really?
I was reading that Dana said that the video of him putting the belt on Sean's waist that he posted has double the views of what his follower count is. So his follower count was 8 million, and it has 16 million views. Some crazy shit.
So it's very possible that they're gonna go. They're gonna go in that direction, man. I mean, I think at the end of the day, they're not gonna do it because of who deserves it. I'm gonna be honest in this situation. I don't think they give a shit. I really think at this point it's gonna be about who's gonna make the most money, who can headline a big event. And Sean Strickland and Adesanya, I think, would still sell. I think it would still sell a lot more than a lot of the other names that you could potentially put in there, like a Dricus, even somebody like a Jared Cannonier for Sean Strickland to get that one back. I don't see people dying to buy a fucking pay-per-view for Sean Strickland and Jared Cannonier. Just saying.
Right. No, I mean, I totally agree. I think because Adesanya has a certain degree of mass market appeal that Strickland, I mean, it's interesting to hear that about his clicks with the title getting put around his waist. Does Sean Strickland perhaps have a certain sort of an everyman type of appeal or an anti-hero type of appeal? Yeah, but Adesanya still is a superstar, and he's a personality. Adesanya is a personality, and he is a brand in and of himself, and that's, to me, that's the real difference when a guy crosses over from being a UFC athlete to a brand in and of themselves, like a Conor or like an Adesanya or like a Ronda. So yeah, I mean, Strickland, I don't think he has, and Cannonier certainly hasn't. Cannonier's a quiet, nice, seemingly a nice guy.
Likes rocks.
What's that?
He likes rocks.
He likes rocks?
Have you not seen the rock game of Jared Cannonier?
No.
Dude, he talks about it in his post-fight interviews sometimes.
Bro, he looks like a Power Ranger the way he puts him up and has energy channeling through his rocks and shit.
Yeah. He holds
energy
them,
crystals?
I don't know if they're always there. I think they're rocks, dog. I think they're just straight up rocks.
He's said shit about crystals before too.
He does. Yeah. Well, I've seen the rocks.
The Stricklands, the Cannoniers, the Duplessis of the division, these guys are UFC athletes, but they're not personalities and brands in and of themselves, at least not yet. So yeah, Adesanya is going to sell way more than any of these guys, I believe at this point. So
I get
Tell
it.
you what,
And
I was just gonna say it was a bad time for Robert Whittaker to lose, man. What a
I know, I was thinking that too.
what a shit time for that kid to have had a loss. His first loss,
Dude, Whittaker
essentially in the
versus
middleweight
Strickland was a
division.
great fight.
Yeah, and the only person that kid has lost to is Israel Adesanya until DDP like a few months ago. And look at that, the middleweight division has opened its ass. Like Robert Whittaker would have been right there, front and center, foot already in the door.
Yep.
And
Yep. They would have faced him
torch
off.
drop.
Would have been
cage,
all of
probably.
us would have been like, well, it has to be Whittaker. Like,
Exactly.
it would have been so obvious.
Mark, what were you
Exactly.
going to say?
But no, I get obviously the whole marketability argument, which I think is why Dana was so quick to say like, yeah, the rematch would be interesting.
Yep.
But I really do feel like you got to be careful, and that Izzy losing 2 of his last 3 fights and losing the title in 2 of his last 3 fights is a bit too much to just throw him back in there. I don't think we can just be so cavalier with the immediate rematches. As Omar said, the first Pereira fight, he was winning it until he didn't, so it was a lot easier. This one, he lost, man. He lost really clearly. So I would really like to see him have to win another fight. If you're so concerned about the marketability, I mean, it would obviously suck for Duplessis, who is the rightful number 1 contender, if we're just going off of that. So if it's not going to be Izzy that fights Strickland, it should be him. But it wouldn't shock me if they're like, all right, you know what we'll do? We'll do Izzy and Duplessis right now and capitalize on that rivalry, and that's how we'll, hopefully reignite the fire under Izzy, and we'll do that, and we'll have Sean fight, a Cannonier or whoever, and maybe we come out of there with Sean and Izzy winning, and then we're ready to go. And not to mention, you have Chimaev and Costa happening soon as well. Chimaev, excuse me, I think I stuttered over that. So, like, if Khamzat wins that fight, he's going to be a fucking big deal in this division as well. So, there's a lot happening that you can kind of try to set up here. But, yeah, it wouldn't shock me if they immediately go the Adesanya-Duplessis route to get that fight to happen.
So a number 1 contender fight.
Yeah, while Sean fights someone else, which I guess would have to be... See, I don't think if Chimaev beat Paulo Costa, I don't think they'd go right to Sean fighting Chimaev, because I kind of think they want to set up the Izzy-Sean rematch. So maybe it'd be Cannonier that they give Sean, which is fair. I mean, Cannonier was just the backup, and Dana likes to reward people that were the backup, so it really wouldn't shock me if that's what they did. But it could go a million ways. This is, everything we're saying right now is pure guessing. There's a lot of ways this could go.
Yep.
Strickland has not fought Costa, no?
Nope.
God, what a fight that would be. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
I mean, it is also very likely that if Adesanya doesn't get the immediate rematch, and if Adesanya fights DDP, Strickland might not be there by the time he gets back to a title shot. Strickland might lose to Cannonier. Strickland might lose to Costa. Strickland might lose to anybody.
I mean, if we're being fair, Strickland hasn't lost to fucking anybody in the middleweight division. I don't think he lost the fight to Jared Cannonier, for being completely honest.
We've both said
And
that.
the only other person he's lost to is Alex Pereira, which is apparently going to happen nowadays. So Sean Strickland is not, I mean, for all the shit Sean Strickland gets, for his fight style and stuff like that, and I will die on that hill. It works, good for him, but like, I can't stand it. It's like so wrong in so many ways, but again, it works. But you can't knock him, man. He's literally won all of his fights at middleweight with the exception of the ones that we just mentioned. So,
Bro, I feel like I have not picked Sean Strickland. I'm looking at his record. I know I picked Adesanya. I picked Abus Magomedov to beat him.
You did. That was a wild one.
I probably picked Imavov to beat him because I like Imavov. I might have picked Cannonier. I probably picked Pereira to beat him. It's about time I should come
I
around.
did pick Pereira to
picking
beat him.
I actually think I picked him in every single one of those fights until Izzy.
Jared Gordon.
I remember
Jared
I thought he was going to
Cannonier, I
wrestle
think.
Pereira, and then I was annoyed with myself when I got it so wrong.
I'm pretty sure I picked Strickland in the Cannonier fight, and I was so annoyed with how that fight ended up.
Yeah, but I don't feel bad about it because he won.
Wow.
All right, let's talk about.
45 minutes on that fucking fight. Damn.
Yeah, man, I knew that was going to happen.
It deserved it.
There's a lot to talk about there. A lot of angles. Let's move on now to the co-main event of this UFC pay-per-view 293. went down once again in front of 18,000 strong in Sydney, Australia this past Saturday. In the co-main event in the heavyweight division, Alexander Volkov defeated Tai Tuivasa by submission via Ezekiel choke. The official time 4:37 of round number 2. Omar, give us your take of this fight.
I thought this fight went exactly the way I thought it was going to go, short of Tai Tuivasa blowing Volkov out of the water with some sort of haymaker. But like I said, I wasn't going to pick against Tai Tuivasa. I just wasn't going to do it. But I'm not surprised with how this went down. Volkov had the range. I mean, this is what Volkov had to do. He had to fight at range. He had to pick him apart from the outside and just make sure he didn't get decked in the face by one of those overhands. The thing that drove me a little bit crazy about Tai Tuivasa in that fight was his choice to continue to move outside once he had closed the distance. Like, you are not about to fight Volkov at distance. It's not going to happen. It's crazy to even think that you can outstrike Volkov at distance. The longest human being in that fucking division, probably short of John Jones. So the fact that Tai Tuivasa had moments where he was maybe chucking a winging left hook, jumping on the inside, kind of a la Mark Hunt a little bit, right? Closing the distance, started striking. Stay in there, man. Stay in there, dirty box him, push him up against the cage, make it dirty, make it so that his long strikes don't hit you and he can't throw them. But instead he would engage, he would throw a couple or whatever, and then he would move back outside out of his own range and strictly into Volkov's range. It was really bad fight IQ, if we're being honest, man. It wasn't great decision making in there. I still think Tai Tuivasa definitely had a path to victory in that fight, but he did not even know where to find it or where to even begin. So it was a rough watch in that sense, but Volkov had a great performance and another one on his belt, man.
Mark?
I think he was a little tentative to stay there because he didn't want to get clinched because he was afraid he'd get taken down. But
Which he did anyway.
Yeah, I don't disagree with your point, though.
Yeah.
But I do agree that this looked, more or less how we had envisioned it. Not that we foresaw the Ezekiel choke. I didn't even know you were allowed to try those if you're not Alexei Oleinik. But he shouted out Alexei Oleinik for teaching it to him. I don't know if you heard that in the interview. But yeah, man, Tai, he battled. He certainly found some small moments of success. He ate damage and pushed through. He did what Tai does, but generally he had a hard time dealing with the range that Volkov presents, specifically the kicks, as we kind of predicted. And he's great at cutting guys off and stepping in, and he came close a few times to setting something up, but Volkov is just really dialed in right now. Like, it really seems like Alexander Volkov is in the best form of his entire career, and I know it seems like he's older because we've been watching him forever because of his time in Bellator, and we have, but he debuted in Bellator when he was 23 years old. Like, he's only 34 right now, so for a heavyweight, it actually kind of makes sense that we're seeing a man that looks like he's in his prime. So, he looks great. He was on all night. He was on defensively. He was really effective with the kicks. He hurt Tai a bunch of times, and then the grappling was just dominant. So, he's been turned back by the elite at a time. A few of these guys that he's had a shot against in his UFC career thus far, but I think now he's at a point where he is reascended, and he's going to have to get another shot at one of these top dudes.
His only 4 losses in the UFC are against, going backwards, Tom Aspinall, Cyril Gahn, Curtis Blades, and in 2018, Derek Lewis.
Yeah,
So
and he was
2018
beating
Derek Lewis
until
was
he
a
got
little bit of
caught.
a different
The Gahn
creature
fight
than
was
he is
competitive.
today. Yeah, it was. That was a decision. That was the decision, and Curtis Blades was the decision. And he was beating Derek Lewis, by the way, back in 2018. I remember that fight very, very vividly.
Yep.
I was there, dog.
Very end. You were in Vegas?
That was the McGregor Khabib card. I was there for that madness.
Wow.
You were at McGregor Khabib?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't remember that.
Yep. Me and the wife, because it was actually coincided with the wife's birthday weekend. Wow. So, or birthday week, I should say. Her birthday was like on a Wednesday or some shit.
Going to Vegas, baby.
That's exactly what we did. We went to Vegas. We got a really nice, like a little sexy suite, jacuzzi, balcony, and we made a little thing of it. It was nice. Actually, I don't think we got a balcony for that one. Good
that
times.
Volkov win was when Derek Lewis was like in Derek Lewis form and was just ending everybody. And that was the final fight that led him into his title shot against Cormier.
Yep.
Which I was also at.
Damn, man. That was in New York.
Yes, it was. We bought those tickets last minute. We didn't even plan to go, but they were super cheap and we got floor seats. So I was like, fuck it, let's do it.
Cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about what's next for Alexander Volkov. Mark, what do you think?
So weak answer, but I don't think there is a clear answer right now. I think he's going to need to wait and see how some of these fights above him shake out, because we have Bo and Stipe, see what happens there. I think you got to see who gets booked between Pavlovich, Aspinall, Gane. You know, they're all kind of a level above him at the moment, so you got to wait for at least two of them to be booked. And then Blades and Almeida's already booked. So I think you got to wait, because anyone who is not those people I just said kind of feels like they're less than what Volkov deserves right now. Mm-hmm. So, and I know, as I said, he's already lost a chunk of these guys, but he's on a great run, and he deserves a shot at someone who's ranked this highly, I think. The only other, I guess, potential option, if he wanted to kind of take a fight to stay busy while the rest of these played out, is if he wants to try to get his revenge on Derek Lewis from the fight that we were just discussing. I guess he could take that one in the meantime. But if that doesn't interest him, then I think you just wait and let some of these play out first.
Omar, any other ideas?
No, I mean that's pretty spot on. I mean, at this point, I probably wouldn't expect Volkov back before the end of the year anyway. So by the end of the year, I'm sure we'll have a better idea of where the heavyweight division is going to be, especially after all these fights shake out.
Okay. All right. We're talking about Tai. Mark, what do you think about Tai Tuivasa? What's next for him?
I mean, my man's lost 3 in a row now. He's been finished 3 in a row. I think he's at the point where you book him against someone that you fully expect him to knock out, and you make sure that he can do that. So for me, that will be the winner of the recently booked fight between Rodrigo Nascimento and Don'Tale Mayes. I know it feels like a step down. I was hating on Omar last week for throwing out Mayes for Spivak. But Spivak has lost 1 in a row. Ty's lost 3 and been finished in all of them. So I kind of think in this case it does make sense. And I think you'd like to see him be able to finish whoever wins that fight. And then you're like, okay, good. Like, Ty still got it. But I think we got to see that.
Cool.
I gave Spivak so much shit for that performance. It was like specifically that performance. I don't know why I took that performance so personally, but
really
like I just could not deal with it.
Okay. Do you have any other
Omar,
ideas for Tai, Omar?
Honestly, Nascimento, the winner of the Nascimento fight was also my pick as well. That's kind of where I see Tai at this point. Every other option around him just doesn't make sense. 3 in a row. I mean, you got to give him somebody, I think, below him, but somebody who's on a run. I think that's really where it's at.
Okay. Let's move on. In the flyweight division, Manel Kape, who was supposed to go up against Adesanya's teammate, Kaikar France, and he almost ended up fighting Adesanya at the press conference. But Manel Kape, he did away with Felipe dos Santos in a decision, 30-27, 29-28, and 29-28, all for your winner, Manel Kape. Mark, start us off. Give us your take of Kape's performance.
What a friggin' fight this was. There was a good amount of fun, firefight type fights on this card, but this was probably the best one. We all knew this going in, but Manel Kape is a crazy high-level counter-striker. I mean, my God, man. The dude
He's so fast.
just
Oh, my God.
slips, and it's someone said on the broadcast that it's almost like he blocks and counters in the same motion, and like it really does feel like that. He's got some beautiful counter striking, and that's why he's so intriguing as a potential future title challenger at flyweight. But with that said, he was in a damn fight on this night. In typical shoot to box style, Felipe dos Santos was in there for a war. This kid, to hang with Manel Kape the way he did, he is one hell of a dynamic striker, and he has a crazy chin. He ate a lot of shots, and Manel Kape has some of the biggest power in the whole division. He's knocked down the last 4 guys he's fought, including Dos Santos. But he couldn't get Dos Santos out of there. So it's going to be really exciting to see Felipe matched up, coming out of this one, see what he can show. But to circle back to the winner, Manel was just a bit better. He was cleaner, bit better technique. He carried the bigger power. He was more composed. He landed the more significant shots, and he won the fight. And now he waits, for the big-name opponent that he should be getting. It sounds like it might still be Kai. Obviously, they were going at it. I guess we'll get to that in a second here. But, yeah, he got it done.
Omar, your thoughts?
Yeah, man. Dos Santos has nothing to be ashamed of, man. That was a hell of a performance from him. I thought he really put it on Kape and really made it a much more competitive fight than I think anybody had in mind in that situation. Dos Santos was announced a month before under a month before the fight actually happened. I feel like a month is not like the worst amount of time to prepare for a fight. But then at the same time, Manel Kape is a tall order, I feel like, in general. So I wonder, as good as Dos Santos is, I wonder how different that fight would be down the line with the full camp and things like that. But credit to Manel Kape for also taking that fight on short notice, because I feel like it's a very different fight than I think he had in mind as well. Man, such a great fucking fight. It ended up being fight of the night as well as it should have been. Mm-hmm. But I think Manel Kape and Kai Kara-France are probably the thing we're going to end up having next.
Yeah, man. Mark, any other ideas about what could be next for Manel Kape, Starboy?
I feel like you got to try to go back to that, right? It doesn't seem like Kai's out for all that long, and with all the vitriol coming from Kape directed at Kai this week, the heat that's been built on that fight, I think you got to try to go right back to it. And, again, Kape deserves it. Anything less than a fight like that is silly right now. If it's not Kape, it's got to be someone else who's on that level, because the guy keeps getting delayed with everyone pulling out and him having to fight guys like a Dos Santos. As good as he was, he has no name. So it's got to be someone on the level of a Kai Kara-France.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, moving on. In the heavyweight division, this one's going to be quick because the fight was pretty quick. Justin Tafa defeated Austen Lane by knockout in the very first round. The official time, 1:22 of round 1, with some elbows finishing off the job, or some ground and pound. Absolutely vicious. Omar, start us off. Give us your take of Justin Tafa getting another knockout.
I mean, it's the punches that these Samoans throw, bro, are just out of control. And again, they're I think they get away with a lot at heavyweight. Like sometimes their movements at heavyweight could be so fast, and I don't know if other heavyweights could react just as fast. Big boys don't necessarily have the best reaction times, between what they see in their head and how their body moves. But man, Justin Tafa laid him out with that left hand. His right hand was down a little bit, but I don't think it really mattered by the end of it, man. Austen Lane ate some heavy shit in there, and I'm glad it got a little. There was a little sketchiness in the beginning, right? I know we were just coming off of a rematch off of a bad eye poke, and I feel like that fight started off with like either a little bit of a dick shot or maybe a little bit of an eye poke. I can't remember.
Oh, it was an eye poke. Yeah.
Was it another eye poke?
Yeah.
Fuck, it's just out of control. But it was a fantastic finish, man. Justin Tafa that's as good as a left hand's going to get, man.
Yeah. Absolutely. Mark?
Yeah, dude, the eye poke was almost at the exact same time in the fight as the first one. It was like 30 seconds in.
Was it really?
Almost identical repeat. Thankfully, Tafa, was fine, and we got to finally resolve this one. But, yeah, I should not have let myself get swayed by 20 to 30 seconds of the first fight, because the first fight I thought Tafa was going to KO him, but I don't know. I got too cute with that fight pick. I I saw all those body kicks he was landing in the first fight, and I got swayed. But, initially I thought Lane's head was kind of out there to be hit, and it was. And then this random ref was just trying to let Justin Tafa kill Austen Lane on the ground. It was probably 2 or 3 bombs too many. I don't know what this guy was doing, but
I hate it when that happens.
Huge left hand, got his revenge after the damage that Lane did to his eye in the first one. Well done by Justin Tafa.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's keep this train rolling right along. Mark, staying with you, what do you think could be next at heavyweight? Would be a nice, interesting heavyweight matchup next for the big man, Justin Tafa?
I'm not getting crazy at all. He still has, a couple sketchy losses on his record. But I will say that Muhammad Usman recently beat his brother and is currently scheduled to fight Jake Collier. So I think the winner of that fight, especially if it's Usman, would make a lot of sense for Justin Tafa for the storyline of, trying to avenge that loss.
Okay. Omar, any other bright ideas?
The only other person that I would have in mind in this specific sense would probably be Chris Barnett. I know he pulled out.
I knew you were going to say that. I thought.
I know he pulled out recently in a fight back in April, I believe. So maybe once we're September? Tafa's probably not going to fight. At worst, he'll fight in December for one of those December cards possibly, but I don't think he's going to fight any earlier till then. So that should be timeline-wise, that should work out.
That would be a fun one.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move right along. Here we go. Oh, man, this fight. In the light heavyweight division, Tyson Pedro defeated Anton Turkalj by knockout, also in the first round, the official time, 2:12 of round number 1. Tyson Pedro, that's how you get back in the win column. Omar, start us off.
Dude, Tyson Pedro had me a little nervous, though, just because of his... I feel like Tyson Pedro has been more aggressive in the past, and I felt like in this fight he was just a little more tentative than I was comfortable seeing him being, and taking almost his time, not throwing that many strikes, kind of working on the outside. And it's not like Turkalj was doing too much. He was eating quite a bit of shit there, but I got a little... Oh, no. Sorry, wrong dude. Thinking of Carlos Ulberg. Wrong guy.
Bro, I was sitting here like,
that's my bad.
This guy talking about?
My bad. That's the next fight. No. Tyson Pedro absolutely ruined this dude. Tyson Pedro absolutely ruined Turkalj. Yes, no. I'll save that whole speech for Carlos Ulberg. That's the other guy. That's my bad.
Oh, God.
Okay, Margo.
Yeah, that was funny. I was debating what I wanted. I was like, do I call him out for how much I disagree with him? Do I let it go? Oh, man. Yeah, Tyson Pedro, safe to say he accomplished the bounce back. I mean, you can't dream it up any better than that. He looked like a monster. He looked sharp. Multiple clean shots finding Turkalj. Dropped him bad. And then had one of the coldest celebrations I've ever seen with that samurai celebration. That was fucking sick.
That was sick.
But really, that's exactly what he needed after his last performance. So hopefully now he can get back on track and continue the rise that we thought he was on prior to that Bukowski's fight, and we go from here.
Nice. Like it. Okay. Let's keep going, boys. I like the direction of this ship.
Can I match him up quick before we go?
Oh, yeah, please do.
So, yeah, to kind of continue off what I just said about the odd loss, he is a little bit of an odd case because he has such good wins, but then he does have some weird losses on the record. So, it's a little tricky to match him up, but if we do chalk up that last loss to a stomach virus or whatever it was that he was dealing with, I'm forgetting now, he has still looked great otherwise in his 4-fight return here since coming back from the injuries that he dealt with. So I think you still move him up the line here. I'm going to give him someone like a Devin Clark or even a Kennedy Zachukwu. I know it may sound a little aggressive, but he's not getting any younger. He's 3-0, other than that loss where he fought sick. So let's see if he can break through here.
Omar?
You think your shit was? Let's go with Ryan Spann. Let's push the bull the whole way. We're gonna go with Ryan Spann. I think it's crazy that him and Tyson Pedro and Carlos Ulberg are in the same division. I think that's pretty wild to me. Aren't they boys or something like that?
Oh, I think you're saying that you feel like
this...
they're very different sizes. Yeah, they're the same camp.
Yeah, that's
because Tyson Ulberg, I guess, was always CKB, but Tyson has been there for maybe since his return, maybe these 4 fights, because he wasn't CKB like in his earlier days, but yeah, he is now.
Yeah, they both got some momentum at this point, so I wonder how they're going to deal with that when the time comes, because we already know Dana doesn't like friends, so
yeah. Cool. One more before we hop into our lightning round. Also in the light heavyweight division, Carlos Ulberg defeats Jung by submission via rear naked choke. The official time 4:49 of round 3. Mark, start us off this time. Give us your take of Ulberg getting it done with another finish.
First off, if you're a wrestling fan, you probably picked up on this and appreciated it, but I loved the crowd doing the Ulberg chants in the exact same tone as the old Goldberg chants. Like they were going Ulberg.
Yeah.
And that was fucking awesome. I don't know if it was intentional or coincidental. I got to think it was intentional, but it was cool. But yeah, man, this was another display from Carlos Ulberg. He almost had a big moment early, which he's been having a lot of lately, where he dropped Jung and he tried to swarm him, but Jung did survive to his credit, and Ulberg stayed calm, and he didn't go crazy, and he just continued to do his work. I thought it was a really patient performance from Carlos Ulberg, where he showed throughout that he was the better fighter. I think he would have liked to get something bigger. Obviously, he's had these big knockouts lately, but I think he's showing you his progression, that he was comfortable in there. He was not going to force anything that he didn't have to. He defended all the grappling that Jung tried to initiate. And then he even gets the submission at the end as the cherry on top. So I think we're seeing some great progression from Ulberg. I know already because of the teaser from a minute ago that Omar wasn't so thrilled with the pace, but I was fine with it. I thought it was a solid performance. And he's another guy, more so even than the last. I think he absolutely has to fight a ranked level opponent at this point. It's time.
Yeah, and it might just be I don't want to give him shit for it because it worked and it was a solid approach. He didn't get hurt in the fight. He was able to use that distance to take advantage of Turkalj throughout that fight. So I don't want to give him shit for it. I just oh my god, down Jung. Yeah. So I don't want to give Ulberg shit in that regard. It just seemed like it was a difference in his approach. He seemed not as aggressive. He seemed content to kind of fight on the outside. I'm glad he found the opportunity to take Jung down when he did.
I like your way.
What? The way I said it?
Yeah.
Jung. No, that's not it. But yeah, I thought he looked good, man. I did think he looked good. I guess I was just a little surprised in the difference in the pace from what I feel like I've seen in the past. But it was definitely a solid, measured approach. I thought he pieced up Jung's face throughout that fight. I think Jung's nose was ripped by the end of that fight. And it was a great performance, man. It really was. It was good.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it was. No, man. I bought a ticket a little while ago on the Carlos Ulberg train. And I'm not getting off. Let's talk real quick about what could be next for Mr. Ulberg in the light heavyweight division. Mark?
I thought his call out was perfect, to be honest. I got no issues with it. He called out Dominic Reyes. I feel like he should be fighting a ranked fighter. I feel like he should be fighting a name. I know Reyes hasn't looked great, but like if the dude's going to keep fighting, he's got to fight someone. So let it be Ulberg. We'll see where these guys stack up.
Oof, what a great fight that would be. Great fight. Omar, any other thoughts on that?
Should this be this week's Dominic Reyes throw of the wall? And just see if maybe this one sticks. Maybe a new week, a new pick for Dominic Reyes. It's got to fight at some point.
That's true.
Yep. You know that's who I just said too, right?
Yep.
Oh, I
Yeah.
didn't know if you didn't hear me.
No, it just I'm just trying to figure out if this is it. If this is the week. This is the week for Dominic Reyes.
Like it. This is the week for Dominic Reyes. Okay, let's jump into our lightning round. So, no picks, just quick takes on the results of the remaining bouts from this past weekend's UFC 293. Here we go. In the featherweight division, how do you say this kid's name?
Chepe.
Chepe Mariscal defeated Jack Jenkins by TKO via arm injury, 3:19 of round 2. Marco first.
This one was pretty unfortunate, man. This was looking like the good matchup that we all thought it could be. Jenkins maybe a bit more skilled, but Chepe just a dog who's going to make adjustments, and he's going to make you earn it. And we were seeing just that. Jenkins won round 1 with some big kicks. Chepe adjusted, doing good work in the clinch, in round 2. And then the fight's over. A freaking gruesome elbow dislocation, or I haven't heard officially what it was. That's kind of what it looked like it was.
It is official.
Okay. When Jenkins tried to post, and, that's all she wrote. But I did think both guys looked pretty good in there.
Omar?
Yeah, the dislocation was official. They confirmed that there are no fractures in his arm. They're concerned at this point. The biggest concern at this point are the possible ligament tears and how bad the ligaments are at this point. But as far as broken bones or cracked, whatever, anything like that, we're good in that department. It was a sad moment because Jack Jenkins, I thought, actually looked real sharp throughout that fight. I thought his striking was really on point. His hands looked clean as shit in that fight. And Chepe showed a lot of heart. He seems like this kind of guy that's not going to back down when he gets in a firefight. The more you hit him, the more Chepe is going to try to come forward. But I thought Jack dealt with it, for the most part, really, really well. Mm-hmm. Really unfortunate circumstance, getting tossed off of that whizzer. The way he posted on his right arm was just, oh, man, that's the shit that just makes you cringe at night.
Yeah,
I hope he recovers quick. That looked painful as hell.
Okay, lightweight division. Jamie Mullarkey defeats John Makdessi by UD. Omar, start us off.
This was another Makdessi fight, man. Another solid little brawl. A little bit of back and forth. A little bit of potentially some controversy, or at least a close enough fight to have people kind of scratching their heads as to who might have won. That second round I thought was a little sketchy on both sides, trying to figure out exactly who won that fight. Because I think, in my opinion, I think it was up to the second round. I thought the third round was for Makdessi. I thought the first round was for Mullarkey. You could definitely tell me Mullarkey won that second round. You could tell me that Makdessi won that second round. I thought Makdessi landed the harder strikes. I thought he did more damage in general. So I had Makdessi winning the second and third round, but it was a close fight. And I feel like that's like the story of John Makdessi at this point.
Yeah. Mark?
So I'm hugely in the minority here. I'm seeing these scores on MMA decisions where 88% of people scored this fight for John Makdessi, and add Omar to that list. But I got to say, I disagree. Jamie Mullarkey won round 1, as Omar said. I think that's the only place where everyone agrees. 2 judges gave Mullarkey round 3, which I think is very dumb because John Makdessi clearly won round 3, and 94% of people on MMA decisions agreed with that. So I agree it comes down to round 2, but I thought Jamie Mullarkey won round 2. I understand Makdessi knocked him down with about 10 seconds left, and yes, that's a factor. But I had Makdessi way down at that moment of the round. So to me, a flash knockdown where Mullarkey immediately popped back up was not enough to change like a 20-strike deficit in that round, where the harder strikes I thought were from Mullarkey. So to me, he did deserve that win, and I'll go against the masses in scoring that one.
Okay, in the lightweight division, Nasrat Haqparast gets it done over Landon Quinones by UD. Mark, staying with you.
This was another great scrap, man. It was a solid debut for Landon Quinones, honestly. He was very game. He hung with Nasrat throughout. He really ripped up his lead leg, especially in round 1, and Nasrat had to deal with that the rest of the fight. But, Haqparast was just a bit too good, as I imagined he probably would be. He's the higher-level striker. He landed the more impactful shots, you could tell, and he made the adjustments as the fight went on. And, Landon tried to keep pushing through, but the adjustments were kind of what changed it it started to swing more in Nosferat's direction. And as much as it was competitive, he probably took every round of that fight. His left hook was a big weapon, kept landing over and over. So nice W for him, but not a bad debut for Quinones either.
Omar?
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree. I do think that there's a lot of opportunity for Quinones' defense. I thought he had really good kicking defense, but his hands need to stay a lot higher if he's going to get into those kind of firefights. I mean, he was getting smashed clean in the face on multiple occasions. I could even give him a little bit of a pass when it comes to those later rounds because you're exhausted at that point, and it's hard enough trying to keep your hands up, let alone continue to fight and throw punches and things like that. So, but he was having that issue long before the third round. So I think there is some opportunity there. I thought Haqparast did a fantastic job mixing up the levels. Not only was he smashing Quinones in the face, but he was working this kid's body too, man. He was throwing left and right shovel hooks to the body of Quinones and really tearing up that cardio of his. And you could see it by the third round. The cardio was, they were both on a completely different level with their cardio was. And that's saying something because Quinones still had shit left in the tank, but he had slowed down so significantly by that third round that Haqparast just kind of took off with the rest of that fight. So it was a great performance from Haqparast. We don't really see, I feel like, a lot of decisive wins like that from Haqparast, and I thought it was great that we did.
Great.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Welterweight division, Charlie Ratke. This guy. Charlie Ratke defeated Mike Mathitha by, is it Mathitha?
Mathetha.
Mathetha.
You could just say Blood Diamond.
Blood Diamond by UD 29-27 across the board on all three judges' scorecards. Omar, start us off.
I'm trying to figure out. We need to give Herb Dean his flowers because I'm glad somebody's finally taking points off for people repeatedly kicking people in the dick or kneeing people in the dick for that matter. It's not great. It's not great. It feels, a lot of times it feels worse than it looks. And you got to land your knees properly, man. There's all of this you can knee. Just the 1 little inch that's down there or whatever, you can't knee. Just don't do it. It's crazy to me that it's still happening. I thought it was a competitive fight to a certain extent. I thought it was relatively boring, all things considered. There was a lot of clinch work, a lot of stalling, a lot of work up against the cage. And I think the more that the clinch game came into play, I think the more the cardio suffered as a result. I think they were muscling a ton of stuff in that fight, and I just don't think they had the cardio to put on the performance I think they would want to. So they had some striking here and there. I don't think it was anything that was like to take away to run away home with. I expected a little bit more from Blood Diamond, but I think this is like the second time I've been disappointed in his performance. So that's that.
Cool. Mark?
I got to give Blood Diamond credit. There was certainly a lot of visible improvement in his defensive grappling compared to what we've seen prior. You know, Ratke couldn't take him down at all. But improvement aside and kickboxing skill aside, it just doesn't seem like he's a complete enough fighter. Like Ratke was even putting it on him on the feet at times in that fight. And if he ever wasn't, he was able to just go right to the clinch. And, you know, as much as he couldn't take him down, he could still control him there. So it just seems like Blood Diamond might be a little too beatable. I know he was apparently a great kickboxer. I wasn't even familiar with him until Izzy kind of introduced him to the scene. But 0-3 in the UFC, so it doesn't appear to be working out.
Okay. Featherweight bout, catchweight at 149. Gabriel Miranda defeats Shane Jung by rear naked choke. Choked him out in the first round. Mark?
Speaking of not working out for someone from CKB, Shane Jung is now 2-5 in the UFC. That's 4 straight losses, so I'm not sure we will be seeing him again. And this was not close. This was clockwork, step-by-step work for Gabriel Miranda with not much resistance coming back. And he put Shane Jung to sleep for good measure. So great bounce-back W for Miranda after being fed to Benoit Saint-Denis up a weight class in his debut. And maybe the last time we see Shane Jung.
Omar?
Yeah, I don't disagree. I also don't feel bad for Shane Jung because he missed weight quite egregiously. And I'm super glad that Miranda won a fight where he was essentially made weight and, you know, got shafted in that department. So we don't normally see guys that miss weight and lose. So it was nice to see that the weight bully did not get the win.
Okay, last one. Welterweight division, Kevin Jose defeats Kiefer Crosby by submission in round 1. Omar, your take?
I thought this was also a good fight. This was, I'm trying to, hang on. I'm trying to remember what this one was. Of course, the last one. Oh, yeah, no. Jose would actually put this, he put it on Crosby the entire fight for the most part. I thought his striking was really on point. I thought his movement, his distance management was really on point. He seems like a really long, lanky dude. And then to top it all off, he's got a submission game as well. So, shit, he might be one to look out for.
Yeah. Mark, take us home.
Was it Jusei? Is that what you just said, Mike? I'm trying to remember what his name was.
I said Jusette.
Oh, is it Jusette?
I don't know. I don't remember.
I wasn't trying to correct you. I truly cannot remember what it was. He's French, so maybe it is Jusei. I don't know. But anyway, both of these guys I thought had some really nice moments in the beginning of this fight. It was shaping up, looking like a fun fight. But then Kiefer made a mistake. He tried a hip toss, and he ended up giving Jusei his back, or Jusette, whatever we're going to say, and he made him pay. You know, and then Kiefer didn't even protect his neck when Jusei got to his back. So, you know, he only had about 20 seconds left to work in that round, but he didn't even need it to find the choke because Kiefer just kind of gave it to him. So, good win. He looked pretty sharp all around. Definitely a really solid debut. The Ian Gary call-out was rather aggressive. I don't think that's going to be happening, but good debut nonetheless.
Yeah, man, that does it for our breakdowns and quick takes. UFC 293, Adesanya versus Strickland in Sydney, Australia. To put a bow on this one, Mark maintains his own ranking system, guys. And we call it, affectionately, the Priaulx Rankings. Mark, tell us who rose and fell in the aftermath of this UFC pay-per-view.
So there was no drastic movement here from any of these matchups, but a few smallish moves, but they feel significant, so I will share them quickly. And it's just 3 risers. Working up, Carlos Ulberg was number 20 in my light heavyweight ranks. He is now number 17, so again, not any huge move, but he's kind of right there now, right outside of this top 15 ranking, so hopefully he's fighting a ranked fighter next, as we said. Alexander Volkov was number 9 in my heavyweight ranks. He is now back up to number 6, so again, as we mentioned, he's like sitting right outside of that elite bunch, and you would think he's going to get another chance to kind of knock on that top 5 door. And then the last one, obviously, the man who was my number 5 middleweight in the world is now the middleweight champion of the world, and that is Sean Strickland. And that is it this week.
Alrighty. Okay. Let's keep this train rolling right along. Omar, take us into our next segment, Inside the MMA Sphere. Let's know what's going on in the world of MMA outside of the cage.
Well, leading us off is the official merger of the UFC and the WWE's companies. Endeavor and WWE announced the close of their deal, and they've created TKO Group Holdings. So that is the new ticker in the stock exchange, TKO. And there's a lot of numbers and things here that I don't fully understand. I'm sure Mark probably knows and reads this with more comprehension than I will. But that merger's happened. So there it is. I wonder what it's going to be like for this foreseeable future, what changes that ends up making. I know I already heard rumors about WWE and UFC like weekends and like having like shows on kind of in tandem, or not tandem, but like sequentially, right? So like WWE maybe on a Friday, and then UFC on Saturday, promoting and things like that. So it'll be interesting to see what changes get made. But that has officially happened as of this morning or yesterday morning. One of these goddamn mornings.
What was that? Yesterday. That was yesterday.
Was it yesterday, right?
Right.
Tuesday.
Yeah, yesterday. Yeah. But yeah, the Takeover City idea is very cool. I remember when I was a kid, WWE pay-per-views were always on Sundays. These days they're on Saturdays. But I wonder if they would ever go back to Sundays or to Fridays, as you said, I guess. Because the idea, if you're a fan of both, of going to some city for a weekend and you go to one event on one night and the other event the next night, like it's a pretty cool idea. That's a pretty dope weekend. So I like their thought process on that one. And then, of course, they've tried to, mention how they see it as an avenue for characters in the UFC, like when their career is done, to continue their career and possibly be able to move over to the WWE side of things in whatever role it may be. I'm curious to see if DC pops up there in some capacity, because I know he's obsessed. He was even there at the stock exchange, which, like, he doesn't have any big role in the UFC, but I'm sure he was like, bro, I'm coming. And Dana was like, all right, fine, like, come. So, yeah, it could be interesting. We'll see what happens, and I'm sure they're going to fucking make money.
Yeah.
I guess so.
It was a big deal. They made it into a really big deal. So, like I said, I'm interested to see the changes. There's gonna have to be something different, right? It's not just gonna be everything as usual. There's gonna be some kind of change or some kind of improvement. So
I did see that on the back of the merger, Dana is no longer the president of the UFC, but he is the CEO of the UFC. So I'm not sure if anything has actually changed. I'm not sure why. Like, who was the CEO? Was there not one? And now they just changed Dana's title? Like, I was trying to look into it, but I couldn't figure it out.
What's the point of his title change? Is
I
his
don't know.
role different now?
I don't know.
Like, he's still a promoter, right?
I would hope his role is not changed, because a lot of what the UFC is due to him, I believe. I mean, obviously there are negatives too that we've discussed before, but I think he plays a large part in the UFC's success.
I agree. I think once Dana White's gone, for all the criticisms this, that, and the third, I think the UFC will be completely different, for better or worse, but completely different.
I agree.
All right, next on the list, a wild little story here. I don't know if you guys have heard about this. So the UFC actually had canceled the featherweight fight between Hussein Askabov and Daniel Pineda next month. Apparently, Askabov and his twin brother have been arrested in Thailand for alleged kidnapping and robbery. Phuket News has reported that that him and his twin brother were arrested on September 5th in connection to an ongoing investigation involving the robbery of an Italian man in Thailand. They definitely put that poor man's picture out in the news of him tied up in handcuffs, and like these, the zip tie handcuffs with a bag over his face. They did not need to do that to that poor man. But Phuket apparently is hardcore, so that shit's all over the news. Phuket. Is it Phuket? It's not Phuket?
No.
Oh. Well, damn, that's going to be... The PH not being a fuzz is going to be rough for me, man. Okay. All right. So, according to the police, they did say that the man was robbed of multiple items, including watches, some sort of Nautilus watch, a Graph watch, MacBooks, iPhones, sunglasses, basically, again, and $43,000 apparently in cash, which, why do you have $43,000 in cash just lying around? But I guess that's not my business. Yeah, so apparently they supposedly, the way I've understood this story, the Askabov brothers were not directly involved in the robbery and the kidnapping, but they knew something about it, and they know the people that were involved, and so that is why they have been arrested and taken in for questioning in Thailand. So, yikes. So it seems like until further notice, they're not going to be booked. Obviously, that the fight, the whole point was the fight was canceled with Daniel Pineda, so we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, no, I saw that story too. It's a wild one. Maybe now they will make Daniel Pineda and Nate Landwehr like they should have in the first place.
Well, that's what we get. All right, next on the list, we've got a few fight announcements and some changes here, so we'll go right through them. Robert Brzezinski is out against his fight with Jacob Malkoun. Malkoun will now be fighting Cody Brundage at UFC Vegas 79 on September 23rd. That'll be going down, I think, next week. Grant Dawson versus Bobby Green will be headlining UFC Vegas 80 on October 7th. Joaquin Buckley and Alex Morono have also been added to that card as well. Yep.
Ooh, that's a sexy fight. I like that fight.
Karolina Kowalkiewicz and Diana Belbita will also be on that card. And I wrote Joaquin Buckley and Alex Morono twice. That's how excited I am for it, baby. There it is. All right, we have Terrence McKinney versus Chris Duncan. That fight has been added to October's 14th event. Matt Schnell versus Steve Ursig. Oh, Jesus. Versus Steve Ursig, cool, added to UFC 295 on November 11th.
Usyk's got the little red thing underneath it, so I didn't even see the G part of it. It's really, really misleading. Fucking shit. Jared Gordon versus Marco Madsen. That's been added to UFC's 295 event again on November 11th. And the rumored Max Holloway versus Josh Emmett fight has been targeted for UFC's Orlando event in December. Probably can't go to that fight for a number of reasons. Makes me sad, but it's dope. It's in Orlando.
Who the fuck thinks Max Holloway and Josh Emmett is a good idea?
I mean, the problem is Max Holloway will take any fight. So
I mean, I know he will, but like, why? Like, what? I don't. Josh Emmett. How does he deserve that fight? I don't understand. Like, there's nothing better we can have Max doing. I'm just disappointed in that booking. I really am. Like, he's lost 2 in a row. He got finished by Yair. He got worked by Topuria. And now we're like, yeah, let's have him fight Max Holloway? Like, boy, were we trying to kill this guy?
I mean, that's why I said
and he'll win, too. Fucking, ugh. I hate it.
Oh, absolutely not. Don't even put that in the
Yeah,
universe.
he
We're enough of this just fucking 2023 bullshit. And now we still have Leon Edwards and Colby Covington to look forward to, and that one, I mean, how do you not get terrified that Colby Covington's not going to walk away with a fucking belt in that fight?
I just read that it's weird. They said it's official, but they don't know which event yet. If it's the November card or the December card, but they said it's now finalized. So whatever that means.
Oh, well, it doesn't sound like these rumors of John Jones not wanting to be on the same card as Colby Covington would lead me to believe that it's probably going to go down maybe December then, because John Jones is November, right, in MSG?
Yes. Yeah, I don't know how true that rumor was. I heard a couple people say that was bullshit, but who knows? So what is what month are we in? So 295 is the Bones one? Yes. So does 296 have a different main event on it already?
So supposed to be McGregor and Chandler.
Oh, well the supposed to be was shared by Connor and no one else. I kind of think he was trying to will it into being booked. I'm not sure that's actually occurring.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. Interesting.
All right, and our final little piece of information for you guys this week is the billing of Bellator 301. This will be the undefeated welterweight champion Yaroslav Amosov versus Jason Jackson in the main event. The co-main event will have bantamweight champion Sergio Pettis versus the Grand Prix winner and interim champion Patchy Mix in a unification bout that is very, very interesting. And then rounding out the main card is a lightweight Grand Prix semifinal matchup between Patricky Pitbull and Alexander Chablis, and as well as the bantamweight rematch between Rafael Stotts and Danny Sabatello.
Oh, wow.
So all that will be going down at, again, Bellator 301 on November 17th in the Wintrust Arena in Chicago. That's a dope reason to go to fucking Chicago.
Bellator has 2 fire cards in a row with 300 and 301. Good for them.
Yeah. Last piece of news here. I don't know if you guys have been keeping up with the bare knuckle game, because you know your boy has. And Alan Belcher versus, any guesses? Random heavyweights that you haven't seen in obscurity perhaps in quite some time?
Alan Belcher was never.
Wait, fuck! I wish I could really think here. It's so hard to pull a name out of the fucking sky. Roy Nelson.
Literally.
It's not Roy Nelson. But...
Fuck yes, no, Mark. We got that on film. That's amazing.
I can't believe that's right.
Oh my god, we should totally play like one of those fucking password games. That was amazing.
Wow.
Choose a heavyweight that you haven't heard of from obscurity, and he picks the right one. I would be offended if I was Roy Nelson.
I swear I had no clue.
Wow.
Not a clue on earth. And
Good guess.
I just figured it wasn't him because I was like, he's not going to come back. But wow.
He 100% is, and he's coming back at Gamebred's bare knuckle MMA event for the heavyweight title of his promotion. So that will be going down. Oh yeah, there's no actual date for it, but Belcher was officially released from BKFC, so he's now with Gamebred bare knuckle.
We didn't talk about it, I guess, but I saw JDS beat Verdum.
Yeah, it looked like it was a scrap. They
Yeah, it
both
did.
fucked up by the end of that fight.
Yeah. I didn't realize Jorge shit. I guess I did realize it, but my brain, I guess when I hear bare knuckle, I just think of BKFC. And then when I realized they were fighting MMA, I was like, oh, shit. So,
Dude, I was watching a couple of those fights. It's wild, kid. I don't know. There's an extra level of craziness to it when you don't have gloves on. I don't know why. Everything else is the same.
you
They're still kicking each other.
That's why.
I guess so, man. It's crazy. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is all we have for you this week.
Oh, baby. Oh, baby. So this coming weekend is a little bit of a pay-per-view light feeling card. UFC Fight Night Grasso versus Shevchenko 2. That's right. A title fight headlining a fight night. This event is also nicknamed UFC Noche UFC in honor of Mexican Independence Day. Very, very cool. This fight night was supposed to feature quite a few more fighters of Mexican heritage or Mexican fighters than it did, but this card actually absolutely got gutted. Too many fights to even go down. Like, it was supposed to have Rachmanov versus Gastelum, totally fell out. Curtis versus Anthony Hernandez fell out. That fight completely just morphed into Kopylov versus Fremd. It's supposed to have D-Rod versus Ponzinibbio, gone. It's supposed to have Elise Reed versus Cynthia Calvillo, gone. Well,
Elise Reed's still on the card. She's fighting Lupi.
Oh, she is?
Because Lupi's fight
right,
Lupi was
right.
supposed to fight Sam Hughes. So thankfully they could at least put Reed and Lupi together to keep them on.
Anyhow, what this fight has sort of settled upon, we're going to talk about, I believe, 5 of the fights on this card. Before we get into any of those, gentlemen, any fights or fighters that you want to quickly spotlight for our listeners?
Yeah, we're taking a little bit of a random approach here because it's kind of a randomly organized card. They wanted to get the Mexican fighters on the main card, so we're not really doing the whole main card. So I'll mention a few of the main card fights that we're not doing. Fernando Padilla is fighting Kyle Nelson. Daniel Zellhuber's fighting Christos Yagos. Both of those, we kind of tried to pick and choose what to do here. But Padilla and Zellhuber, the two Mexican fighters, are both interesting guys who have certainly shown some talent. I think Zellhuber's probably got a tougher test with Yagos than Padilla necessarily does with Nelson. But I would definitely keep an eye on both of those guys. They can both be flashy. They can both be finishers, so it could be fun fights. And then the other one that we're not going to do, Omar will probably have something to say on this one too, is the Raul Rosas Jr. fight, who obviously got a bit exposed in his last one. He had a ton of hype prior to that, but he has kind of been handed a gimme here, not to shit on Terrence Mitchell. That's not what I'm trying to do, but you would think he'll be able to kind of run through Terrence Mitchell, and that's the feature fight on this card. So look for Rosas to hopefully bounce back there.
Mm-hmm. Omar, anybody else?
Not so much. Fernando Padilla is probably the one that I'm going to be looking forward to. He's relatively dexterous with his legs. I kind of like the way he fights in that sense. I think I still need to see more of his actual approach to the fight to kind of get a better sense of how he uses his skills. But he's definitely got some talent there.
Okay, let's get into this. Tracy Cortez versus Jasmine Jasudavicius in the flyweight division. Tracy Cortez, the 29-year-old out of Phoenix, Arizona, 10-1 as a pro, 8 decisions, has not lost a fight since her very first pro fight back in 2017. She will be standing across from, once again, Jasmine. Or is it Jasmine or Jasmine? I'm confusing myself.
Jasmine.
Yeah. The 34-year-old out of Ontario, Canada, 9-2 as a pro. Very nice matchmaking right there. 6 decisions. Coming off back-to-back victories, both by decision. Most recently defeating Miranda Maverick back in June of this year. Omar, start us off. Give us your take and your pick of Cortez versus Jasudavicius?
It's an interesting fight, man. Jasmine or Tracy Cortez hasn't been in the octagon for a little bit. The last time she was scheduled to do so, she ended up pulling out relatively last minute. It was at an event that the wife and I did end up going to, and of course I can't remember what the fuck it is. I think it was the July card because we went for International Fight Week in 2002. So I want to say it was for that, but I'm not 100% sure. But I do know that she didn't end up going to the event. And there was all that drama with Brian and all that stuff. So she's been out of the game for a little bit, and she was on a little bit of on a lot of a run as of late. So it'll be interesting to see exactly where she's at now on her comeback. And she's got a tall order with Jasudavicius, man. Jasudavicius is consistent, if nothing else. She knows how to win, and I think that's what makes the fight very interesting because these are both women who are very good at finding a path to victory. Maybe not always the most exciting fights in general overall, right? But they're there to scrap. Tracy Cortez will definitely scrap with somebody and will definitely throw hands, and so will Jasudavicius. So I think it's going to be a fun fight. If I've got to go with a pick, I'll go with my girl Tracy Cortez here. I think she'll be able to squeak this one out. Like I said, it's a tall order. I wouldn't be surprised if the decision goes towards Jasudavicius, but I'll roll with Cortez here by UD.
Mark?
So very tight odds. Cortez is the favorite right now at -120. Jasudavicius is plus 100, so even money on her. 2 inches of height and 2.5 inches of reach for Jasmine. And this is a tough one to call. You know, we haven't seen Tracy Cortez in a while. As Omar said, she's not really fresh in the mind. Of course, she's only lost once in her whole career, and it was in her first pro fight. So, you know, you ignore that. She's been an undefeated fighter since she's really got things together. But, you know, you have Jasmine, who's clearly bigger. She just beat Miranda Maverick. She has been active. She's looked pretty solid of late. So it's a tough call, but I think I'm going to go ahead and trust Tracy here. I don't know that I'm 100% sold on her game either, but I think she's more of an athlete than Jasmine is, and I think that could potentially be enough of a difference. Like, I think she's almost like a faster version of Miranda Maverick, and that little difference could be enough to swing things against Jasmine, who's like a little bit plotting in there at times. So I think it's a close fight for sure. Jasmine's strong. She's a gritty fighter. But I'll say maybe Cortez lands a little more in the striking, finds a nice entry or two, and kind of just does enough to get a close decision win.
Well, we are unanimous for this unanimous decision. I, too, am taking Tracy Cortez only because I like her. And I think this is a super tough fight to pick. It's a great matchup on the stat sheet. They're both decision machines. And I like Tracy Cortez. So I'm going to roll with her. I'll take her by decision. Okay, in the middleweight division. Is this middleweight or light heavyweight bout?
Mids.
It is the mids. Okay, because Josh Fremd has fought at light heavy. We have Roman Kopylov taking on Josh Fremd. Now, this is the bout that started out as Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Kelvin Gastelum. Gastelum withdrew after breaking his face in training camp. Right? No, I'm sorry. This was Chris Curtis versus Fluffy Hernandez.
Correct.
Chris Curtis withdrew for breaking his rib and was replaced by Roman Kopylov. And in turn, Hernandez pulled out due to a torn ligament and was replaced by Josh Fremd. That's how these things happen. So, still should be a fun scrap, nonetheless, between some two big boys, two big heavy hitters. We have Kopylov, the 32-year-old Russian. He's 11-2. By the way, this is actually a very nice piece of matchmaking in and of itself. Kopylov, 11-2. Of his 11 wins, 10 by knockout. After dropping his first two UFC bouts, he's now rattled off 3 wins in a row, all by finish. Josh Fremd, very similarly, 29 years old, out of Pennsylvania, 11-4 is his record, 8 finishes himself. And after dropping his first 2 UFC bouts, he now is riding a 2-fight win streak coming into this weekend. Most recently, getting a decision over Jamie Pickett. Mark, start us off this time. Give us your take and your pick for Kopylov versus Fremd.
So despite the kind of similar resumes that Mike just laid out there, the odds are not very close. Roman Kopylov is minus 380, which may be a little bit much, but he's stringing together some knockouts, so I get it. Josh Fremd is plus 280 as the underdog. 4 inches of height for Fremd, which is kind of a lot, only 1 inch of reach. And I do think Josh Fremd has a well-rounded game that can give certain guys trouble. I just don't think that is the case in this matchup. I think he's a little too slow to make it work against Kopylov. I think Roman's going to be in and out, start picking Fremd apart as this fight goes on. He is looking increasingly dialed in and increasingly comfortable every time we've seen him lately. And I don't think Fremd is the man to change that. I really think Kopylov has it going right now, and I think he will find a finish at some point. I'll lean toward that it takes him a little bit, so I will say it's an early round 3 TKO for Roman Kopylov.
Omar?
Yeah, after the last performance, there's no way in hell that I'm going to be taking anybody but Kopylov in this fight. I feel like I did not take him in the last one, and I regretted it. So I won't be doing that again. And I just think that Kopylov has just he's been on point, man, with his striking for sure. So I'm going to go with Kopylov here. I think he gets it done in the second round, and I think he gets a head kick. KO.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are taking all the words right out of my mouth. Kopylov, I believe, is going to have more firepower, and even though Josh Fremd is a nice prospect coming into the UFC, I think Kopylov is on a little bit of a different level in terms of his power and overall fireworks that he brings into the cage. Give me Kopylov. And you know what? I'll take Kopylov by knockout. I'll say round 3. Maybe round 2.
That's how I was feeling. That's why I said early round 3. I couldn't decide which one to take.
Nice. Okay, here we go. Strawweight bout between Lupita Godinez and Elise Reed. Godinez, the 30-year-old out of Mexico, 10-3 as a pro. 8 decisions, riding a 2-fight win streak coming into this weekend over Cynthia Calvillo and Emily Ducati, whatever. Elise Reed, the 30-year-old out of Princeton, New Jersey, 7-3 as a pro, 5 decisions. Most recently, getting a decision over Jin Yun Frey. Omar, start us off this time.
So, I think this is another one of those situations where I picked against Lupita Godinez the last time, and I ended up regretting it. I'm not necessarily sold on Elise Reed or honestly Lupita Godinez. I do think she's good, but I can't help but feeling that there's a ceiling there, and I'm just not really clear as to what that ceiling is. So it's hard for me to gauge when she's gonna break, when she's gonna do really well and when she's necessarily gonna falter. But I will take Lupita Godinez in this fight. I think that she has the hands. I think she'll be on quote unquote home turf, right? With it being Noche Mexico or Noche UFC and all that. So I think the crowd will be on her side. I don't necessarily expect the most amazing fight, if we're being wholly honest. But I think Lupita could definitely get at least 2 out of the 3 rounds to take away that fight. So give me Lupita by UD.
So Lupi's a huge favorite. She is minus 450. Elise Reed is plus 340. 1 inch of height, 2 inches of reach on the side of Reed. And she is a tricky fighter. I feel like I almost just said the same exact thing in the last fight. She's given some other girls some issues, but I think she can be bullied by Lupi here. So I don't think she necessarily poses a ton of problems for Godinez. Is it Godinez or Godinez? Is the Enye on there? I'm forgetting.
It doesn't look like it. Let me look up.
Godinez, excuse me. So yeah, I think this is going to be a clear Lupi UD. I think if she's willing to grapple, she can really bully Elise Reed here. However, she's not always willing to grapple. Sometimes you think Lupi will go in there and obviously grapple because that seems to be her route, and she'll just strike the whole fight. So I don't know, but even in the striking, I think the power of Lupi is much more than what's going to be coming back from Reed. So yeah, I think she can probably bully her a bit either way. So I will say it's a clear UD for Lupi.
Yeah, man. Dude, listen. I'm not picking against Lupita Godinez at Noche UFC. It just ain't happening. Okay? I'll take Godinez by UD and agree with all of the excellent analysis that has just transpired on this show. Okay, here we go. Co-main is getting fun here, boys. Kevin Holland taking on Jack Della Maddalena. What a fucking fight is this at 170 pounds? Kevin Trailblazer Holland is 30 years old, out of Fort Worth, Texas. His record stands at 25-9 with 1 no contest. Only 4 of his 25 wins has gone to the scorecards. So 21 finishes, 14 of them knockouts. He's riding a 2-fight win streak coming into this weekend at welterweight, knocking out Ponzinibbio and choking out Michael Chiesa in the first round this past July. He'll be standing across from another finisher, Jack Della Maddalena. Should have been on this past weekend's card because he's at Australia. He would have blown the roof off the place. 27 years old, out of Perth, Australia. 15-2 as a pro, with 13 finishes, 11 of those knockouts. Has not lost a fight. Oh, this is interesting. He lost his first 2 pro bouts, and he has gone undefeated since then. Hasn't lost a fight since 2016. Man, oh man, what a fight, what a matchup. Both these guys is going to be absolute fireworks. Do not blink for this one. Omar, start us off. Give us your take and your pick. Holland versus Della Maddalena.
It's a real interesting fight, man. It's very different styles. I think there's 2 different levels of aggression there as well. And it's not to say that Kevin Holland is not aggressive, but there just seems to be that extra little something about Jack that just seems just a bit more intense when it comes to the way he throws his strikes, the way he closes distance, the way he shoots takedowns. He's somebody to be really concerned about, I would imagine, at least looking from the outside in. Kevin Holland is no slouch, though, man. Those submissions of his are slick, very opportunistic. Even off of a takedown, Kevin Holland can still end the night in his favor from the bottom. He's a dangerous threat as well. His hands, as we all know, are also pretty damn slick. Short of being Wonder Boy, I don't see people outstriking him to that extent. So it's a very interesting fight. I have a really hard time picking it, man. I mean, on paper, I feel like Jack Della Maddalena should win this fight, right? I think he's got momentum, but he's also got that striking. He's got very heavy hands. I think he's giving up height and reach, I would imagine. I'm sure we'll get into that with Mark. But I do think it's a taller order for Maddalena than I think a lot of people might be expecting or assuming that it is. And I think it's kind of the same in some respects for Kevin Holland as well. I think Maddalena is very good defensively, and I don't think he has as many openings as some other folks that Holland has fought have had. But I think it's going to be a lot of work for both of these guys to find an opening that works for them. And I expect this fight to be a lot closer by the end than maybe what people thought. So give me Jack Della Maddalena here.
Wow.
I'm gonna take the pick there. I wouldn't be surprised if this ends up being a split decision, to be honest, something close and ridiculous where one of these rounds could have gone either way, probably will go either way. I wouldn't be surprised at all. But I'm going to go with Maddalena here by decision.
I will go next. In the interest of keeping things a little more fair. I don't think this is going to go to the scorecards. I really don't. There's just too much firepower in this cage between these two guys. Dude, I'm going to go with Della Maddalena here. I think he's going to put a temporary stop on the Kevin Holland welterweight train once again. I like what you said. Yes, I kind of agree that, like, in terms of striking, short of Stephen Thompson, don't know if many guys are going to stand with Kevin Holland at welterweight, but except, in my opinion, for Jack Della Maddalena. So such great power and such great speed and hand speed in this division. I think this fight is going to stamp his ticket. Give me Jack Della Maddalena by knockout or TKO. Oh, man. I'll say round 2. I always say round 2. It just feels like the safest thing. I don't know why. Round 2. Only going to be his second knockout loss in Kevin Holland's career, but I'm going to roll with the guy who cracks out of Australia, Jack Della Maddalena. Mark?
All right. Kevin Holland actually started as the betting favorite in this fight, and money has come in on Jack and flipped it. So Jack is minus 150.
Oh, wow.
Kevin Holland is plus 125 as the dog. To reference what Omar brought up about the stats, yes, Kevin Holland is going to be 4 inches taller, and he will have an 8-inch reach advantage in this fight, which is pretty damn huge. And I do not feel prepared at all to make a pick in this fight, so I would like you to just go to the next fight.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, man, I don't know. It's so hard. I could see myself flip-flop as we get closer to this fight. I really love both of these guys. I wish they weren't running into each other right now. Jack is unbelievable. I have thought that and drove that home on this show since he debuted. The talent is so obvious. I love his style. But at the same time, I think Kevin Holland is the exact type of fighter that could potentially hand him his first UFC loss and kind of slow this rapid ascent just a little bit. And this would have been my read, regardless of what we just saw from him in that Basil Hafez fight. That really didn't change anything for me here. And don't get me wrong, this is very much a coin flip. JDM is a dangerous dude, but he's going to look to strike. And Kevin Holland does a great job of slipping shots, absorbing shots that do land, using his own crazy reach to land from out in space and hurt dudes when they think that they are safe. Not to mention Jack has like a slick sub game that he can sometimes turn to, but it's probably matched or even exceeded by Kevin Holland's own slick sub game. So the 4 inches of height and 8 inches of reach is a lot for JDM to deal with, and maybe he is that good, and I certainly think, in a future fight he could deal with it. I think he's still progressing as a fighter. But where he is right now, I think I'm going to say Kevin Holland is enough to turn him back. And I'm like 51-49 here. As I said, I'm so torn. I could absolutely see like JDM pressuring and Holland backing up to the fence, and then he eats a body shot and he goes down and he just gets swarmed. Could absolutely see that from JDM, and he's that good. But I think I'm going to say Holland stays safe and just kind of lands a bit more from the outside, some hard shots. And I'm going to go to what Omar mentioned and say it's a split decision. I'm going to go with Kevin Holland.
Okay. All right, main event time. Rematch in the women's flyweight division for the belt. Alexa Grasso defending her UFC women's flyweight title against Valentina Bullet Shevchenko. This time, since Grasso is the champion, let me get to her first. She is the 30-year-old out of Guadalajara, Jalisco, Mexico. She's 16-3 as a pro with 10 decisions on her record, riding a 5-fight win streak, including her stunning victory over Shevchenko back in March of this year, in doing so capturing the title. Valentina, who has earned quite a few Lady Goat votes. What a funny way to say that. Lady Goat votes across her flyweight tenure, holding the belt for quite some time. She is the 35-year-old out of Kyrgyzstan. Her record stands today at 23-4 with 8 knockouts and 7 submissions to her name. Prior to that loss, wait a second. She was on a 9-fight win streak going into that title fight since losing that split decision to Amanda Nunes. And also prior to that, Amanda Nunes is the only person that defeated Bullet Shevchenko in the past decade or so. So she's not bad at fighting in a cage. Okay. Mark, why don't you start us off? Give us the odds, your take, and your pick.
All right. The champion is the underdog. She is plus 140. Valentina is still favored. She is minus 170. The height is the same. There is 1 inch of reach on the Alexa Grasso side of things. I picked Valentina to win the first fight, admittedly without giving too much of a chance to Alexa Grasso. There you go. That's a perfect example. I gave way more of a chance to Sean Strickland than I gave to Alexa Grasso. That's how surprised I was when Alexa Grasso won that fight. And I'm going to have to really, I've had to reevaluate my view of Alexa Grasso a little bit. I'm going to have to really reevaluate it if she wins again, because I feel exactly the same going into this fight as I did going into the last. And that feeling is just that Alexa Grasso is obviously very talented and poses problems for Valentina with her boxing, but that I also think she's going to lose a clear decision. I still think Valentina's better, man. I think she can win the striking, especially now that she's been in there with Alexa and got to see it. I think the leg kicks and the kicks in general are going to be more of a factor for Valentina in this fight than they were in the first. And I still think if the striking is too competitive, that Valentina can still look to take this thing to the ground and win it there like she did in the first fight. And I know you say, what do you mean she didn't win it in the first fight? She got choked out. But it was a freak finish that came out of nowhere. All of the actual grappling that happened prior to that was being won by Valentina. Don't forget, she won rounds 2 and 3 of that fight very clearly behind her grappling. So I think this fight's going to be more of the same, just without the crazy mistake and crazy finish. And, I don't want to say it's a mistake. I mean, it was unbelievable what Grasso did to get that finish. But I think this fight's going to kind of be more of the same, except without that, and with a little bit of improvement from Valentina in the striking exchanges. And I'm going to say she gets her belt back. Obviously she's getting older. You never know when the fall-off happens with these fighters, but I'm not ready to assume that just yet. So I will say she gets the belt back by UD and sends the crowd home in a bad mood.
Oh, God. You're right about that. I agree. I mean, I'm going to pick Valentina until she retires. She's just that good, man. She's just that good. And I love her. I'm a big fan of her. She's one of my favorites to follow. And I agree that the finish that Grasso found, it seemed a little bit like she found the needle in the haystack of how she was going to win that fight. And she was losing up until that point. So I'm going to say that Valentina tightens up whatever she needs to tighten up. She's probably not going to throw a single spinning heel kick in this rematch. And I think she's going to sail to a UD victory. And new, once again, going back to Kyrgyzstan with the belt is Shevchenko. Omar, take us home.
Omar, remind me quick, did you take Grasso the first time to become the champ?
No, I did not.
Okay, I couldn't remember if you did.
I did not. I like Grasso a lot. I just thought that Valentina was a tall order, and I just didn't think that she could pull it off. I thought, just like any other fight, for the most part, she had, a puncher's chance in that sense, right? But I definitely didn't think she was going to win that fight. The one thing I will say about the end of that fight and kind of what we found out subsequently was, she approached that fight, I don't think, trying to be a better martial artist than Valentina Shevchenko. That would be like somebody trying to be a better wrestler than Kamaru Usman, having not wrestled their entire life like Kamaru Usman, right? That doesn't mean you can't win a fight against Kamaru Usman, right? And I think that that Grasso's approach, while Valentina has so many advantages in that fight from a skill standpoint and experience and all this stuff, I think Grasso trained for specific moments and specific opportunities for her to take advantage of. And I think when those opportunities showed themselves, I think she put it on 100%. And Valentina is known for throwing that spinning back kick. Like, known. Is not, it's like 100% that she will, at some point in a fight, throw that spinning back kick. So train to counter that spinning back kick. And that's exactly what she did. There's training videos of her having trained that specific sequence. In a real fight, things went a little a little more haywire than when you're training, obviously, but the sequence was relatively the same, and I don't think it was a fluke that she got that moment. I think she trained for those minute opportunities that are going to present themselves against somebody as great as Valentina. I think it would be dumb to try and beat Valentina at something that she's very good at. I say that having just come off of Sean Strickland beating Adesanya in a kickboxing fight, basically. But I do think that's Grasso's best approach, is to find those opportunities. And I think she did in the first fight. I think she'll continue to look for those opportunities in the second fight. I don't think Valentina can change her style enough at this point to stop what opportunities they might have been able to study for at this point. So I'm going to go Grasso here. I'm going to go with the underdog, and I'll go Grasso by 4th round submission.
Wow. Again.
Submission.
Wow. That would be crazy. If she has her number like that, that'd be nuts.
Yeah. And she did win round 1 of the first fight. I don't want to act like she was down 3-0 because she was not. It's just that then she lost 2 and 3 and seemed like she was maybe losing 4, and then obviously everything changed.
Yep.
But I do remember all the shit in the comments. I don't remember if it might have only been a couple, but I remember getting shit that none of us picked Grasso, so I am fully prepared to get more shit if I am wrong again. But
yeah, she sold me on that last fight, man, because like I said, it really didn't seem like she looked like she knew what her opportunities were, what her avenues to success were, and she fully embraced them and fully knew that she could beat Valentina in a fight. Just may not be the best fighter the way that Valentina kind of is.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, boys. How about a little bit of trivia? What do you think?
How about it?
Let's
I
do
got one
it.
too.
In the spirit of Noche UFC, here's 2 Mexican Independence Day questions. How many days is the celebration of Mexican Independence Day?
Fuck, I don't know, bro.
3.
5.
The answer is 2. Mark gets the candy bar. How many years? Closest. Let's just do closest. Not closest without going over. This is not Price is Right. How many years did the war last between Mexico and Spain?
Six.
Omar.
100.
The answer is 11.
Who's closer?
Another fun fact that I didn't know is that before Mexico won its independence from Spain, the place was called New Spain. So there you go.
I did not know that. I feel like I've watched Zorro so much I should know more about Mexican history.
Yeah, right.
I do not.
What else? It's not Cinco de Mayo, folks. Just don't get it twisted.
Yeah, Cinco de Mayo is the fucking, I feel like it's like the Hallmark version of Mexican celebratoriness.
Yeah. Many people are like, Cinco de Mayo, is that Mexico's is that their 4th of July? And it's like, no, it's not. It's about one battle at a different time. But that's for another podcast, not us, because this is MMA, not history of Mexico. But we got a little taste because it's Noche UFC this Saturday.
I'm taking it back to MMA for my trivia question.
Oh, do it. Oh, I didn't know you had one.
Oh, I said it did when you said trivia time.
It's because I don't listen to you.
Okay, this will be the same thing. Whoever's closer gets it. Going into Saturday, I should say. What is the record of champions who lose their belt and then are given an immediate rematch in their next fight? Percentage-wise. So, what percentage of the time do they get their belt back? Whoever's closer wins.
Oh, my God.
15%?
I'm going to go in the opposite direction. I'm going to say 70%.
35.7%. The record
Give it to Omar.
The record of the former champs getting an immediate shot to get it back is 5-9.
Wow. That's worse than I thought, man. Wow.
Yeah, I knew it was on the negative side. I knew there was more guys that had lost than won. Just didn't know it was 30 seems a little bit higher, a lot higher than I realized.
Yeah. 5-9. A couple were recent. Figueiredo got his back from Moreno right after he lost it. And there was another recent one, too. Oh, Izzy got his back right after he lost it. So the record was a lot worse until fairly recently.
I wonder
Anderson's on that list.
Well, he lost.
I wonder if there's a
he lost.
disparity between guys who do an immediate rematch, like 3 months later or however long, or if there's a threshold of time.
GSP didn't get an immediate rematch, right? Wasn't there one in between, or did he get an immediate?
No, he didn't get an immediate.
He didn't, right? Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he didn't.
I don't think he did. I think there was one in between.
And Nunez got hers back fairly recently too. So yeah, that record was a lot worse until the past couple of years. I'm checking GSP right now. Why do I say Nunez sometimes? Nunez. What's wrong with
Nobody
me?
knows. Nobody knows.
GSP. He fought 2 more fights before he got his rematch.
Holy shit.
He beat
That's a lot.
Koscheck, and then he beat Matt Hughes.
Oh, the Koscheck one. Man.
That wasn't the Koscheck one. That was an earlier Koscheck.
Oh, that wasn't the jab for
That
5
wasn't the
rounds,
jab.
Koscheck?
That was defending his title much later.
Oh, all right.
Okay.
All right.
All right, boys, we've done it again. Enjoyed the fights this weekend, folks. We're getting out of here not terribly late.
Yeah, I'll take it.
I'll take it for sure.
Yeah.
UFC Fight Night, Grasso versus Shevchenko 2, Noche UFC, a.k.a. Even though I wish this was going down in, like, Mexico City. Would have been cool. It's in Vegas.
Yeah, and if there was more big deal Mexican fighters on it, like, this could have been way cooler than what it is. I get
From
it,
what I
California
remember, they
hurt.
put this card on relatively last minute. I don't even think they realized what weekend this was up until like a few months ago. So,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, fair enough, I guess. Fair enough.
All right, gents. Well, we will reconvene next week, and we will talk about all these fights and more. We'll also talk about what? We'll talk about the next week's fights. September 23rd, Fiziev versus Gamrot in their fight night, headlining their fight night. Also, Bryce Mitchell versus Danny Ige next weekend. Although I don't know if that's going to happen with Bryce Mitchell's had some fuckery going on with his ex-girlfriend.
Bryce Mitchell too, with his girlfriend.
Yeah, man.
What happened with his girlfriend?
His ex trashed his farm.
Oh, really?
Oh shit! I didn't hear about this.
Yeah,
Oh,
man, he
damn.
put out some long 5-minute video saying his ex-girlfriend came to his farm in the middle of the night and destroyed his trees and fruit trees and crops and shit.
God damn.
He's like, this woman is evil. I'm calling on my neighbors to help me out because she's evil.
You need to call the law.
Anyhow, all right, let's get out of here. Let's
right.
let's get out of here, and we'll catch up with you guys next week.
Cool.
Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Catch you soon.
Adios.
Peace.
Peace.
Peace.